I bought my dream car with every cent of my inheritance and 3 years of overtime, only to come home and find my sister's luggage in the trunk and my father handing her the spare key like he was the one who signed the check. My sister, the golden child who has never held a job for more than 3 months, looked me dead in the eye and told me that since I'm doing so well, it's only fair that she gets the car to start her new life in the city. My parents didn't just back her up. They told me that if I tried to take the keys back, I was being selfish and ungrateful for the sacrifices they made raising me. But there's one massive detail they completely overlooked in their rush to play Robin Hood with my property. 3 days before this little ambush, I had already legally signed the car over to a private buyer and filed the transfer of liability with the state. Was I wrong for letting them think she owned it right up until the police arrived to report a stolen vehicle that wasn't even mine anymore? Or would you have let your family steal $50,000 from you just to keep the peace? Let's go back to where this all started, so you can understand the dynamic in my house. My sister, Chloe, is 2 years older than me and has been the center of the universe since the day she was born. My parents, Sarah and Mark, have spent their entire lives shielding her from the consequences of her own actions. When she failed out of college, they paid for a sabbatical to Europe. When she crashed her first car while texting, they gave her their reliable SUV and started taking the bus to work themselves. I, on the other hand, was the reliable one. I worked through college, stayed out of trouble, and eventually landed a high-paying job in tech. I've never asked them for a dime, and in their minds, my success isn't a result of my hard work, but a resource that belongs to the entire family. For the last year, I've been saving specifically for a high-end luxury sedan. It wasn't just about the status, it was a reward for the 80-hour weeks and the missed vacations. I did my research, negotiated for months, and finally, last Tuesday, I drove it off the lot. It was beautiful metallic charcoal, leather interior, that perfect new car smell. I was so proud of myself, but the moment I pulled into the driveway, I saw the look on my mother's face. It wasn't pride, it was a calculating gaze that I've learned to fear over the years. The comments started immediately. Chloe was struggling because her old SUV finally died, and she had an interview for a huge job 2 states away. My mother started talking about how blessed I was and how easy things come to me. I knew where this was going, but I didn't think they'd actually pull the trigger so fast. 2 days after I brought the car home, I received an unexpected, massive offer from a car enthusiast I'd met through a forum. He wanted my specific model and trim, and he was willing to pay $5,000 over what I just paid because there was a 6-month waiting list for new ones. I'm a practical guy. A $5,000 profit in 3 days is a no-brainer. I decided to sell it, take the profit, and just wait a few months for another one. I signed the paperwork on Friday, and the buyer was scheduled to pick it up on Monday morning. I didn't tell my parents because, frankly, it was none of their business. Saturday morning, I woke up to the sound of laughter in the driveway. I looked out the window and saw my father handing my spare key, which he'd stolen from my dresser, to Chloe. She was screaming with joy, tossing her bags into the back seat of my technically no longer mine car. I ran downstairs, heart pounding, and asked what the hell was going on. My father put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Son, your sister needs this more than you do. You can just buy another one next month. This is her chance to finally get her life together. We're doing this as a family." I told them, as calmly as I could, that the car was not theirs to give. I told them I had already made arrangements for it. My mother chimed in, saying that I was being cruel, and that she didn't raise a son who would let his sister walk to a job interview while he had a luxury car sitting in the driveway. They wouldn't listen. They actually laughed when I said I'd call the police. Go ahead. Chloe smirked. Tell them your own father gave me the keys. It's a civil matter. They won't do anything. She climbed into the driver's seat and sped off before I could stop her. My parents went back inside, acting like they'd just performed a grand act of charity, leaving me standing in the exhaust fumes of a car I no longer legally owned. So, that is the mess I was dealing with. My parents literally stole my car to give it to my sister, completely ignoring the fact that I am an adult who paid for it with my own money. They thought they had backed me into a corner where I'd have to just be the bigger person, to avoid a family feud. But they didn't know about the sales contract or the new owner. Before I tell you the absolute chaos that happened when the buyer showed up and the police got involved, I want you to pause. Think about the entitlement here. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have told them the truth right then? Or would you have let the legal system handle the lesson they clearly needed to learn? Let me know in the comments, because I really need to know if I'm the villain here. The rest of Saturday and Sunday was a nightmare of gaslighting. Every time I tried to bring up the car, my parents told me to grow up and stop being a baby. Chloe was posting pictures of the car on Instagram, tagging it with new beginnings. And blessed by the best parents, I stayed quiet. I didn't say a word about the buyer. Monday morning at 9:00 a.m., a flatbed truck arrived at the house. The buyer, a very serious businessman who didn't have time for games, knocked on the door. My parents answered, looking confused. He told them he was there to pick up the vehicle he'd purchased. My mother laughed and said, "There must be a mistake. Our daughter is out with her new car." The buyer didn't laugh. He pulled out the bill of sale, the signed title transfer, and the proof of payment. My father's face went from smug to ghostly pale in about 3 seconds. He tried to call Chloe, but she didn't answer. The buyer, realizing something was wrong, immediately called the police to report that the vehicle he had legally purchased was being withheld and had been taken without authorization. When the police arrived, the situation escalated into a full-blown circus. I walked out and handed the officers my copies of the paperwork. I explained that I had sold the car on Friday and that my father had taken the keys and given them to my sister without my permission on Saturday. The police officer looked at my father and said, "Sir, if you took those keys and gave them to someone else to drive a vehicle that isn't in your name and is now legally owned by this gentleman here, that's auto theft by proxy." My mother started screaming that I was betraying the family and that I should just tell the police it was a misunderstanding. I looked her in the eye and said, "It's not a misunderstanding. You stole from me. Now you're stealing from him." The police tracked the car's GPS. Within 40 minutes, they had pulled Chloe over. She was hysterical, screaming at the officers that it was her car, but she had no registration, no insurance in her name, and a bill of sale that proved she was driving someone else's property. The car was towed to a secure lot for the buyer to collect, and Chloe was brought to the station. My parents had to spend their entire savings, the money they were supposed to use for their property taxes, to bail her out and hire a lawyer to keep her from getting a felony charge. The buyer was furious and threatened to sue all of us, but I managed to smooth things over by offering to cover his towing and storage fees out of my profit. My parents haven't spoken to me since. They sent me a long, vitriolic email saying I've destroyed the family, and that Chloe is now traumatized and lost the job opportunity because she missed the interview while in custody. They think I should have protected them from the legal consequences. But from where I'm sitting, they learned the most expensive lesson of their lives. You don't get to be generous with someone else's hard work. I've moved out. I'm blocked on their social media, and honestly, the silence is the best gift they've ever given me. In the end, I realized that family isn't an excuse for theft, and keeping the peace is usually just a code for letting toxic people walk all over you. I lost my parents and my sister over a car, but really, I lost them years ago when they decided I was just a piggy bank for Chloe's failures. If you think I went too far by letting the police get involved instead of warning them one last time, that's your call. But I believe that sometimes the only way to stop a cycle of entitlement is to let it hit a brick wall at 60 miles per hour. Like this video if you think I did the right thing by standing my ground, and subscribe for more stories about people finally getting the karma they deserve. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I destroy my family, or did they do it themselves? I'll see you all in the next story.